Welcome to today's LaRouche organization video update. Harley is unavailable today and tomorrow, so I'll fill in today. Mike Billington and Jason Ross will fill in tomorrow. There is madness in the world today, but there's also brilliance. Which side will win? Humanity and dignity for all nations and for all people, or geopolitical wars, one against all, as the British degenerate Thomas Hobbes argued was the nature of mankind, that man is a beast battling other beasts. So let's look first at the beast men. Last week, the top advisor to President Zelensky in Ukraine, Andrei Yermak, and the former NATO chief, Anders Fogh Rasmussen, formed something they called the Kiev Security Compact. This is their way of bringing Ukraine into NATO unofficially by granting Article 5 rights to Kiev. Article 5 is that part of the NATO agreement that an attack on one nation is an attack on all, i.e., the compact nations pledge to intervene militarily to defend Ukraine, not just with weapon supplies, but full-scale war. It was earlier said that Ukraine is fighting Russia with NATO armaments, but now it's openly clear that NATO is fighting Russia with Ukrainian bodies. It is the Ukrainian young men who are being slaughtered in huge numbers to serve global NATO. The European economy, meanwhile, is in a hyperinflationary collapse. Food, energy, inflation are escalating out of control, heading for a total collapse of the currency, as in 1923 Germany. I'm sure you've all heard about what happened then, when they printed money with no limit in order to pay the reparations that had been imposed on them for what was actually the British war. Or there'll be a wave of bankruptcies of factories from the insane effect of trying to stop inflation by cutting off credit, by raising interest rates. But on the other hand, there is now a burst of resistance globally. Not only are Russia and China and all of the African nations and South American nations joining forces to put together a new global financial system, but there is action on the street. In Dessau, which is in the former East Germany, where the collapse in Germany is the most intense, thousands of people are out in the streets, mobilized by the Chamber of Crafts, the skilled workers, and the entrepreneurs. What are they demanding? They're demanding an end to the sanctions on Russia and the opening up of Nord Stream 2. Vladimir Putin had an hour-and-a-half phone call with the German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, just last week. And Putin told Scholz that Europe can solve its energy problem with a flick of the switch. Just open up Nord Stream 2, which is full of gas and ready to flow. It's only the pressure from the US and the UK which have forced the Germans to shut it down in their failed effort to destroy Russia. You may recall that it was in Leipzig in 1989 where the candlelight Monday marches, where hundreds and then thousands and then millions came out on the streets peacefully, demanding an end to the communist regime, which very quickly brought an end to the Soviet Union. Today in Leipzig, under the slogan, quote, "We won't freeze for your profits," crowds are again going to the streets. In Vienna, Austria, 32,000 people were in the streets in 10 different cities. The slogan there was, "Enough is enough. We don't want millions. We want to eat and to have heat and to live." The farmers in the Netherlands and in Germany are still filling the city centers with tractors, refusing to accept the insane greeny demand from their governments that they must shut down 1/3 of their agriculture in order to save the planet. This is in the middle of a global famine described by the head of the World Food Program, David Beasley, as of biblical proportions. Holland, a small country, is the second largest exporter of food in the world, and they're trying to shut down 1/3 of their production. The UK is perhaps in the worst condition. Dozens of strikes were scheduled to begin 2 weeks ago when, lo and behold, the Queen finally died. At least she had the decency to die on the 100th anniversary of Lyndon LaRouche's birth. But with the funeral now out of the way, the country is about to explode. Ports, postal workers, rail workers, truckers, and more. And it will be worse very soon as the winter sets in. People will not accept having to choose between eating and heating their homes. People can't live like that. Ending the economic collapse and ending the war are one and the same thing. The strikes won't do it. Working people obviously need higher wages with this massive inflation, but they won't get them through strikes if the economy is collapsing. There have to be political demands for a new system. Fighting within your own country alone won't do it. The only solution is a new international conference, a new Bretton Woods, to construct a new global financial system, a new security and development architecture for all nations. You may think this is impossible with the degenerate leadership that we have in the Western world today, but these shocks have only just begun. When the Soviet Union collapsed, LaRouche said that the other shoe will also drop, not immediately, but eventually. We are there if we work together for a common future for all. If you do not already have a subscription to the Executive Intelligence Review, the EIR, and the EIR Daily Alert, you can subscribe at the link below this screen. This week has a report on the explosive growth of the backlash to the Nazi kill list in Ukraine, which was sparked by the Schiller Institute and the EIR mobilizing forces around the world to shut down this Nazi operation and to end this insane NATO proxy war. EIR also has the powerful statement by Russia's leading economist, Sergei Glazyev, in honor of the 100th anniversary of Lyndon LaRouche's birth. Glazyev is now leading the majority of the world's nations in constructing the required new global financial system. In his statement on LaRouche, I'm sure you've heard some of this from Harley in previous days, but I'll read you a few excerpts. Glazyev says, quote, "This year, progressive people around the world are observing the centenary of the birth of the brilliant thinker, and I wouldn't hesitate to say prophet of our time, Lyndon LaRouche. Unfortunately, we no longer can converse with him, and it's a pity he did not live to see the day when his warnings about the crash of the world financial system came to pass." So the world is plunging into chaos in precise accordance with the negative scenario that Lyndon LaRouche spoke about in forecasts he made 30 or 40 years ago. Back then, he proposed that instead of pumping up financial bubbles, the world reserve currency emitter countries, together with their partners in other countries, should invest in building global infrastructure, which would reduce the cost of trade, increase the efficiency of international economic ties, and overall contribute to raising connectivity worldwide. Lyndon LaRouche turned out to be right. Today, we rely on his work, his writings in composing proposals for a very rapid transition to a new world economic paradigm. We call it an integrated world economic model, in which finance capital will be subordinated to the tasks of developing the economy, and in which the principles of physical economy will come to fruition. As we can see, countries that are taking this path are enjoying success. There is no doubt that the ruling American financial oligarchy is losing this hybrid war. which they have started against all mankind. It's only regrettable that the price that has to be paid for this will be very high. That includes the lives being lost as a result of the war that the American and European financial oligarchy organized against Russia on the territory of Ukraine. We have to muster all our forces to fight that evil. And the creative legacy of Lyndon LaRouche helps in this. May his memory live forever. So this is the EIR magazine. Executive Intelligence Review. I encourage you to look at the link beneath the screen and sign up if you haven't already. You will be glad you did. So tune in tomorrow for Jason Ross. Thank you.